Welcome to Not a Roofers podcast, where we discuss roofing
without all the jargon. I'm Breianna.
And I'm Charity.
And this is today's episode.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Not a Roofers podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing the current material shortage that a lot of companies and people are dealing with right now and why that is.
Yeah, so we're going to just go from the line that our listeners don't know that there is a material shortage going on.
Well, there's a shortage everywhere. So I personally felt it when I went to buy a washer and dryer and I couldn't find one. Like, I legit walked into Lowe's one day and I was like, you know what? I am so desperate for a washer and dryer right now that I just want you to go around and tell me what you have in stock. And out of all of the models they had one in stock and everything else was back ordered for 60 to 90 days. And that was just when the back order ended. They weren't even guaranteed that they could get them in after that.
Yeah, I have been looking at getting a new car, and very similar. You know, new cars are just flying out of dealerships. And so if you see a car, you need to get it, or like you can't really take time. Houses too. We've already talked about housing a little bit with your house. Houses are just going so quickly. There's just a huge market everywhere. And people maybe don't realize that it is affecting the roofing industry. I mean, it's affecting a whole bunch of industries, but the roofing industry is seeing these shortages as well with materials.
So this shortage comes from the shutdown during the pandemic. So businesses shut down, production shut down, employment shut down, and when all of those things shut down, things stopped getting produced. What we were working with is just the materials that were already in production. So whatever we had currently here and made, that is what materials were going to get used. And that's everywhere. That's not just in the roofing industry. So I know there was a shingle shortage, or is a shingle shortage, and gutter material. Those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. I know there are others. Lumber shortage, which is used in the roofing industry as well. I mean, when we were doing the flashing on our house, we were limited to what we could buy because we were limited to what was in stock. There's just an overall shortage. I didn't personally feel it in the roofing industry until I went to order materials for the company the other day and got an email 3 days later saying, oh yeah, we're not getting these in until, like, they had just been informed that there was now back order on those. So it's affecting everything and will probably last for, I would say, another year. And that is an estimate and a personal guess.
We are going to put this disclaimer that we are going off of the information that we've personally looked up and heard from other people within the industry. We are not versed in understanding everything that's happening.
We are not experts.
At all.
We can only do as much research as is out there.
Yep. So I know I heard about the shortage earlier through silly little TikToks about lumber and other things, but I know that I started seeing it from the company standpoint when I went to also order something for the company a month ago, and it wasn't even a product for the roof. It was a tool that we use on the roof, and they were back ordered and didn't know when they'd be available. And then recently I was doing some marketing stuff and was around when some materials were going to be ordered, and the person had called a couple weeks, like the week before. So I think it was like the Thursday before, they called the manufacturer to ask if there was enough stock for whatever job we had coming up. And they're like, okay, great, you have what I need, awesome. But they still needed confirmation from the job to be like, we are doing this before they ordered it. Got the confirmation on Monday, went to place the order on Monday, and found out that they were completely out. So in a 4-day time frame, it went from, oh yeah, we have that, no big deal, to, kidding, don't have that. So these shortages are so real. And if you joined us a couple weeks ago, we had an episode with Jennifer Turpain with PM Silicone. And in that conversation, we were talking about the material shortage just a little bit, because the one place right now that hasn't been affected, thankfully, is restoration. So silicone coatings or roof coatings in general haven't been affected by this yet. We don't know if it will affect them, but they're the one area right now in the roofing industry that you can still get materials for, which is awesome.
Well, it's also good for when we do restorations, we at least know those are the materials we're able to get. So I know we've been pushing restorations.
But why is it important that the general population know about the shortage? Because maybe you're listening and you're like, well, that doesn't really affect me. Like, I'm not doing anything with my roof. But what affects one industry will affect others in the future if it isn't already. We mentioned the automotive industry is facing this. The housing market is facing this.
Appliances are facing this.
Travel is facing this with people feeling like they can travel again. There's shortage for all of that. And what does that do? It drives prices up horrendously.
Oh,
There's
yes.
this thing called supply and demand.
And when the demand is high and the supply is low, prices go up. And I know, well, okay, so we're gonna do it with food. So I don't know if you've been paying attention to your food bill, but it has slowly been going up. Um, I noticed it a few months ago in my grocery bills, and I am on a pretty restrictive diet with allergies, and so I am not buying random food. I am buying very specific items that I know are not going to trigger my allergies. And my food bill went from like $75 a week to $150 a week within the past year, and I have not switched any of the brands or food that I have been eating. And so you may not have noticed it like from week to week, but over time the same stuff has risen within the past year. And same goes for roofing industry. We just got a price list for 2021 for one of our companies we work with, and prices went up, I think like 3%.
Unfortunately, that's the one thing. I remember learning about supply and demand in elementary school, and I think that's not to say I don't remember a lot from elementary school, but one of the lessons that has followed so ardently within my life, like it's just always, always there, is the lesson of supply and demand. Because it affects everything. If the supply of gas is low and the demand for gas is high, that's when you get $4 per gallon of gas.
I really do not want to see $4 a gallon gas again. It was miserable when I had just gotten my license and I couldn't fill up my tank of gas for $10. That was that was some hard times. I don't want to see that again. But then not let's not only do that, but also there has been panic buying, and that also raises the price of things. I know a lot of people are going to call it price gouging, but the reality is if the demand is high, which if you panic buy, the demand is high because there's a lot of people buying, and the supply is low because the more you buy, the less there is, prices are going to rise. It's just the way it works. So a lot of industries are dealing with this.
Again, we are not experts on this. A part of this is research, part of this is just general knowledge, and the other part is our own personal opinions on this.
Yes.
Hopefully, I would love to bring an expert on who knows more about this.
And maybe we can find one. If you are an expert in what's going on with supply and demand, contact us. We'd love to have you on the podcast.
Or if you know someone that you can refer, be like, hey, I listen to this podcast, and it'd be great. Because we do, deep down, we just want to educate people.
And we don't want to misinform.
So hopefully we aren't misinforming.
I mean, from the research I did, it was very much about supply and demand and things shutting down during the pandemic. There was a lack of work, which caused a lack of supply, which...
Well, and something we didn't mention is you might be wondering why the supply or why the demand is so high, and it is because of the pandemic. Why? Because people were home in their houses or building, whatever it would be. They had the time, because there's this thing. There's like the time, money, and the like triangle. What's the triangle? Time, money, and health, right?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, there's a balance. So I know that, to tell the listeners, our mom is a travel agent, and she likes to give this analogy all the time of like, when it comes to travel, there's the triangle of time, money, and health. When you're young, you have the time and the health to go travel, but you don't necessarily have the money. When you are in your middle ages, whatever you consider that to be,
20s
you
and
have
30s.
the 20s and 30s. You have the health and money, but you don't necessarily have the time because kids start to be added into the picture, full-time jobs, so on and so forth. And then by the time that you get into retirement, you have the time and the money, but your health is starting to decline. And I don't think that really applies to the pandemic wholly, but it's, when you have a house project, when you work a full-time job and you have to go into work and you have your kids' soccer games and baseball games and whatever it would be, you don't have the time. You may have the money to do it, but you don't necessarily have the time to do it. And with the pandemic, some people didn't have the money to do it, but a lot of people had time to finally do it. And if it was something they wanted to do beforehand and they were saving, they probably had the money too. And so all of a sudden, there was this increase in particularly roofing projects, but also buying cars and buying houses and whatever, because people now had the opportunity to do so and really think about their life because the rest of the world shut down. So that is also part of the shortage.
Yep. So, I mean, in all, it does kind of just relate to everything getting shut down. But without everything shutting down, we don't know if this would have happened normally. So
it's hard to say.
We can't be certain about that. But we do know, well, I'm going to hope that things will get better. Like, as things are opening up now, I would hope that supply is able to be restored. But like I said, it might take a year to get back up to there.
Well, and a whole bunch of roofing companies have backlog now too, because there's the jobs that they were going to do and then the materials ran out. So there's going to be playing catch up, and then the new projects that are sure to come about.
Because there's not a shortage in work to be done. There's just a shortage of materials
to do the work.
Yes. We've got the work, we just don't have the materials to do it.
In reality, what this means for the general person who's wanting their roof done, it means longer wait times and higher prices. And when it comes to your roof, this is my personal opinion. I would say if you can put it off a little bit longer and maybe get some repairs that probably could be easily taken care of, do that and wait, see what the shortage looks like. But if your roof really needs the help now, whether that be replacement or if you have the opportunity for restoration, I'd also say go with restoration. We already said those materials are not in this shortage as of right now. Hopefully they never will be. But, see if you have those options to maybe wait this shortage out. If you don't have the opportunity to do that, then just know the price is going to be a little bit higher and the time is going to be a little bit longer than normal.
But it's okay. We will get through this together.
Yeah. And if you have any questions about the shortage or anything else related to the roofing industry, we would love to be able to talk about that on the podcast. So if you have anything, feel free to send them to marketing@roofmedics.com. That's an email address. Email them to that. That brings us to the end of today's episode.
We will see you next time. Bye.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. If you've been loving what you're hearing, make sure to press the subscribe button so you get notified anytime we post a new episode. Episodes come out on Wednesdays. Please share this podcast with a friend, rate us, or leave a review. All of those help us to reach more listeners so that everybody can join us and learn more about the roofing industry as we go along on this journey. If you don't already follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube, I will put all of our information in the show notes below. Feel free to contact us with any questions or ideas you have and would love for us to talk about on the podcast. I hope you have a great day, and we will see you next time.